I'm Cynthia Godsoe. I teach here and I direct the SPARE program. And I just want to talk very briefly about it and about the application process and then get to the fellows, which is the most important part, so that you can hear from them and also have lots of time for questions. So I'm here with Danielle Sorken and Marva Skeen, who along with other faculty committee members help run the program as well. And so they're also really super helpful. And I think Marva already put the application links in the chat, so that's great. So the SPARE program is a stipend for public interest work in this for one summer of law school. So if you're awarded the fellowship, you get it for one summer. Unlike some of the other public interest funding, like for instance, Blisby, it doesn't cover government work. So there's a lot of great public interest work or public service work in government, but SPARE doesn't cover that. Although as you'll hear from the fellows, and if you have the chance to watch the recording, or if you were able to be at the earlier meeting, you'll hear from other fellows as well about the huge array of criminal and civil legal services that you can work in, but just not on the behalf of the government. But even much more than the stipend, which is obviously important, but is that SPARE is a community, both when you're at law school and then beyond. So we have over 35 years of alums, so like hundreds and hundreds of great public interest attorneys around the country and even internationally. And during the school year, there's activities like lunches, which we're now doing virtually, but trying to best the community. But also, if people can mute themselves, that would be great when you're not speaking. Because there's some background feedback. Thank you. But anyway, we have lunches with speakers on different topics, an annual symposium, which normally is in the spring, but this year was just a few weeks ago and I hopefully some of you got a chance to see it, but it was on barriers to the right to vote. So it's a community that goes well beyond just the individual summer. I know the students also put together on their own, the fellows, summer, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but like a summer reading group basically that takes, people who can then discuss and reflect on and read different materials on public interest lawyering or social justice lawyering. So anyway, we're really excited to see you here. We're really excited to hear from the fellows about their summer experiences and also to answer questions. The application, I don't even have, sorry, it's like November 7th, right? I'm sorry, I don't have the copy right here. But Danielle, do you want to talk a little bit about the application process?
Yes. Spotlighting yourself is harder. Okay, hi everyone. The application link is in the chat. There is an essay component if you would like assistance with your essay. You can email publicservice@brooklaw.edu and meet with either Jackie or myself, and we're happy to help you with that application. There's also a request for a reference letter. It doesn't have to be a faculty member at Brooklyn Law School. That person does have to email the letter to Marva Skeen separately, so you really need to just make sure that that person does actually send the letter and staying on top of them so you have a complete application. The due date is November 6th, and I think the committee is going to try to make decisions before winter break, but they will do the best they can to get that. If not, it will be early January. And that's it.
Just one more thing, there's 3 entry points into the SPARE program. So people can apply when they are applying to Brooklyn Law School, and so they're awarded it before they even come. And then applying in the fall of their first year, like some of you, and applying in the fall of their second year, like some of you. And definitely, there are many wonderful sparers. In fact, we heard from one at the lunch hour who was her 3rd time applying. And so definitely, please apply if you're interested. If it doesn't work out this time, there's definitely, definitely prioritize persistence. So definitely don't feel discouraged if that doesn't happen this time, but also if you have already applied, we really encourage you to apply again. So now we're going to hear from that. Unless Marva, did you want to add anything about the application process? Oh, sorry, I think I asked everyone to mute themselves. So
right. No, you said it all.
Thanks. Well, Marva's a really important person to know, and she's who you'd be emailing the application to, and the recommenders would be emailing the recommendations to as well. So now we're going to hear from some SPARE fellows about their summers, and I guess we're just going to go in the order on the sheet. So hopefully that's okay. To start with Julia Cummings.
Hi, my name is Julia. My pronouns are she, her, and this summer, I'm a 2L, and this summer I entered at NILAG's Legal Health Unit.
And then Gabby Freed.
Hi, my name is Gabi. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a 2L, and this summer I interned at the Bronx housing unit.
You can tell us a little bit more about it. I know I was pressuring people to be concise because I wanted lots of time for questions, but just tell us a couple of lines about like what you did specifically and or what you liked about it or what was challenging about it.
Yeah, well, you know, I had a really good summer. I was not doing the work that I thought I would be doing. I was interested in interning at a community legal services organization to get direct client experience, going to housing court, interviewing people, helping to represent people. And of course, housing court was mostly closed over the summer. And I did not go to the Bronx Legal Services offices at all. I stayed in Brooklyn where I live. But I got to do a lot of interesting legal research and writing, which was an unexpected boon. And yeah, it was a good organization that like I really would not have known about if not for like other people in the SPARE program and the Public Service Law Center more generally. And definitely my participation in SPARE like facilitated my being able to get that internship.
Thanks so much, Gabby. Julie, is it okay to come back to you? Just tell us a little more about what you did. And this is my fault because I was like, everyone has to be really brief.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So I was at the legal health unit, which basically handles like any type of issue relating to someone's, basically any type of legal issue that someone might have related to their medical condition. And so I got to see a wide range of things. I got to work on a lot of immigration matters. I got to work on like public benefits. And even with COVID, I got to see kind of some like very developing areas of the law, which was really interesting. So it definitely wasn't.
What? Sorry, what's that?
I'm with the U.S. Census. I'm trying to figure out a couple of the addresses.
Oh, I'm just like a temporary resident. Yeah, thank you.
But
Yeah,
it was really.
it's like short-term sublets.
Yeah, nobody's gonna fill out their census there.
Are we supposed to for short-term sublets?
You were there on April 1st.
Danielle, can you mute?
Thank you.
I don't know if I have that power. Oh.
All right, Julia,
Yeah, I can just repeat what I was saying. So
Thanks, Julia.
yeah, so it definitely wasn't the summer I expected, but I did get a lot of research. I did get client interaction through phone calls and some Zoom calls. So it was definitely really rewarding.
Thanks so much. And then Joe Giacono.
Hey guys, my name's Joe. I worked at Legal Services NYC in their Brooklyn office over the summer, and I worked in their student loan unit. So I had a fantastic summer. I really, really enjoyed it. I got to work like as the single intern of like one guy basically. So it was just this one person who did all the student loan issues. It was within like the foreclosure unit, because I guess like, you know, financial products. And it was a really great experience as an intern. I got to do a lot of client interaction. It was all over the phone at home, just like everyone else did this summer. But I think that, you know, the best thing about SPARE and being able to be like a really cheap intern, right, is you don't feel like you're like wasting your time or whoever you're working for is time, right? Because you get to spend as much time with your client as you want to. You know, you can stay on the phone with them forever and be like, well, you're not paying me, so I'm just going to help your clients. I got to write what's called a borrower defense to repayment, which is basically someone had a bunch of federal loans from when they went to a predatory for-profit college, which is now closed and has been sued by the Department of Education and the state of California. And so I got to investigate, what was wrong with the school, and I got to listen to my client's story and make my client's story into this compelling application for discharge. So hopefully that goes through. It's really difficult right now with the way the Trump Department of Education is, but hopefully that won't be for too long. So Legal Services NYC, 2 thumbs up. And, really cherish this work that you get to do over the summer, because like a lot of the clients that I got to work with, I don't think that they would have gotten as much, I guess not FaceTime, right? As they would have with lawyers who have to do stuff and file cases. So it was good to be that person. So cherish it. And thank you to the Spare program for allowing me to do that.
Thanks. Now, Zachary.
Sorry, I just got a first time alert saying it heard my name and it wanted to unmute it. I got very confused. So I had, this last summer, I had an internship with NILAG. I was working in the public benefits unit, but primarily what I was doing was working with an attorney that was specialized in homeless rights. And it was a great experience. Almost entirely client-facing. I did get to do some legal research and writing for some memos. So there was a joint effort to challenge in a New York City administrative directive against homeless families, on behalf of homeless families. And just got to work with a couple, or talk and speak with some lawyers that worked with different organizations outside of NILAG, which is really cool. But honestly, the day-to-day work was probably the best part. It was the attorney I worked with, she reminded me pretty frequently that it's nice to get a bunch of small wins. So most of what I was doing was, so individuals with disabilities or health issues, especially considering COVID right now, they needed a lot of their individual space for their health and safety. So we'd be advocating on their behalf to try and get them that single space. Every time that someone who was having a really hard time finding that and getting that for them was just such a good experience. It actually inspired me to, I think, probably likely go into homeless rights. I had worked with the population before, but Spare has been great. I remember the first lunch I went to was so cool, just kind of to be surrounded by so many people that were passionate about public interest work. And I was one of the people who applied second time and got through, and it was very exciting, and I'm excited to be a part of this group from here on out.
Thanks so much. And then Meredith Wiles.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I am a 2L. This past summer, I interned with Mobilization for Justice in the Children's Rights Unit. So basically, it was advocating for students with disabilities, and it was direct services work, and I really, really loved it. It was obviously tricky doing it remotely, but I think Mobilization for Justice did a really good job of checking in with us. We had meetings every day with a different attorney. There were 5 attorneys on staff, so it made sense. And we had weekly meetings as well with the whole team, and then they did fun little game times, kind of like a happy hour, but we would play online games together. So they were really great. And the work entailed some intake work, some due process complaints, a lot of client contact, over the phone using interpretation services. A lot of the clients didn't speak English as a first language. And this was definitely something that was impacted by COVID. A lot of students who receive disability services at schools were struggling to get these services when it transitioned to remote learning in March. So there were definitely a lot of things going on in this realm. But yeah, if anyone wants to know more, they feel free to reach out. I am a huge fan of Spare. It was great. We got to do, I think, 1 or 2 lunches in person last year before everything went remote, and those were really great. It was like just a learning experience, and I highly recommend it.
Thanks, Meredith. Yeah, and I think some of us put our emails in the chat, and if other speakers are willing to, that'd be great. So people do want to reach out, but we're hoping also that you'll ask questions here. It could be, especially of the fellows, because there's like a lot of expertise in terms of the public interest community and the Spare Fellowship and how they chose their placement. So do people have questions about the application process or about Spare generally or about public interest work? Please don't be shy. And you can just raise your hand, which you're probably used to doing from class.
A question from the lunch session was somebody asked if you had to have like public interest legal experience to apply to Spare, and maybe some of the fellows could talk about that and their own application journey, for lack of a better word. Anyone's willing to share?
I mean, I'll just start out by saying people come in with like a range of experience. So we definitely are not expecting people to have had, you know, like a full-time, there are people who've come in with full-time jobs working in sort of public service, but we know lots of people haven't been able to do that for financial or just other reasons. We're more looking for like a commitment to social justice, you know, more broadly, including volunteer work, or if you are a second year doing pro bono groups and so on the first year, which I highly recommend to first year students across the board, like not just for Spare, but just as a way to interact, especially now with other people, and a way to keep your hand in actual, you know, working with clients or people, even if remotely. And then there's, you know, people don't necessarily have to know their area. Like there's some people who, you know that they wanted to do criminal defense, like their whole, you know, since they were a child or whatever. And then there's other people who come in thinking, I'm really committed to immigration, and then I'm gonna switch, like, you know, have an experience and do that. So we don't necessarily think it has to be issue specific either. But do any of the fellows wanna add in sort of what their background was coming in, and then maybe how it changed or stayed the same?
Yeah, I would just highlight pro bono projects. You know, I was one of those who had no legal experience prior to coming into law school, and I think my pro bono projects, you know, really, really helped. And get involved with groups too, like any sort of affinity groups that are out there.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's so important. And again, not just for Spare, but just for like meeting other people, especially coming to law school in this difficult time, for those who are first years, or staying connected for those who are second years or part-time students. There was one other thing I was going to say and I totally forgot. Okay, well, I'll come back to it. But any other fellows want to comment on their sort of background coming in? Because like I said, it's really different for different people. There's a real range, and we're not looking for like a one-size-fits-all, you know, candidate.
I totally second what Joe said. And I also came into law school without a legal background of any kind. But I was involved in different volunteer organizations, different types of like political, social justice, activism work. And, you know, those are the reasons I applied to law school anyway. I think like if you just like think back on like why you're here, what interests you in public interest, I think you'll naturally find things to talk and write about.
Thanks. Yeah, that's definitely true. Someone also asked a question about how many fellows we accept per year. So it's not hard and fast. But like I said, there's, you know, 3 sort of points. So there's people who apply entering, which tends to be, and we tend to select a smaller group. And then people who apply in their first year or second year. So this is usually, and Danielle, you can add in if you want, but again, we're not looking for like a set group. And the Dean Cahill has been very supportive and flexible, that generally it might be around like sort of 11 or 12, but again, it's not, or 10 to 12, it's not necessarily a hard and fast thing. And if we have, you know, people that we really feel like everybody is right for it at this time, then we'll try and push for more. But, you know, we can't always, you know, take everybody, definitely. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, I don't know if Danielle or I mentioned in the application process, is that we'll be interviewing some people. We probably won't interview everybody, but we'll interview some people, and that would probably be in November, like later November. Any other questions?
Sure, I have one.
Great.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I was just wondering, I guess for the students, how they were able to sort of balance schoolwork and in the first year with public service work.
Such a good question. Do some of you want to respond? Because I know you all did a good job of it, even if you're all still here, so you survived.
I might not have the best answer, but honestly, I just kind of threw myself at a bunch of stuff and then dealt with the consequences later. And just like, you know, sometimes it was a bunch of late nights, but I'm really glad that I did everything that I signed up for. So you just make it work sometimes.
And I think
People understand when you get involved with a project that like you're a 1L and you're busy, but you're also adjusting. And I think like getting involved with projects is not, I mean, especially as a 1L, is not necessarily about like doing work that is gonna like solve everyone's problems. It's about getting exposed to what's going on, getting some basic like litigation and client skills, and like meeting people. And whoever you're working with will totally understand, you know, that you have to put your schoolwork, you know, before your pro bono work.
And I guess I would just add that like any opportunities through the school are pretty like student centered, since everyone is very busy. And so like, you know, it's very flexible in terms of like your commitment, or like some things that I volunteered for, like you could choose to sign up on a certain date. So you could just like plan ahead. But yeah, I think I agree with everyone that like you just kind of like if you commit to it, like it works out somehow.
Sorry, and oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just thanking them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I've heard from students, like, and I guess this is kind of what some of you were saying, is that it almost like, if you don't do it, obviously in limited time, you don't want to do like 7 pro bono projects, but if you don't do it, then people find like they're kind of less interested in their schoolwork in a weird way, because it sort of helps connect you to the real world, which you don't have as much opportunity in first year, since we don't have clinics or anything in the first year. So it somehow like can also really enrich, I think, classes even. So there's also a question from Sydney.
Hi, yeah, I was just wondering how the placement is determined, meaning do we have to kind of write down an idea of where we want to be, or do you guys place us? I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah, no, great question. I should have clarified this. So the Spare, we fund placements, but we do not find placements for people. So Danielle and her colleagues help everyone, whether in the Spare program or not, like, you know, other public interest students, with helping find public interest placements. But one thing I do think, but definitely I think students have talked, since the Spare Fellowship is really well known in New York and even beyond, definitely beyond in other places, it can also really help open the doors to an interview or a you know, placement. But maybe we could just take a minute. We definitely have lots of time. I know there's further questions, but for a couple of the Spares to talk about how you chose your placement for this summer. I mean, not everyone gets their first choice because you have to go through the interview process and everything, but does someone want to comment on why they chose the area of work that they did?
I can go. It wasn't really so much a choice, just because I ended up getting my internship towards the end of the semester when things were a lot more uncertain, considering the pandemic. And Jackie at the Public Interest Center helped me find that, and I was so grateful for it. But definitely not for trying. There's a lot of applications sent out, and I think a lot of places were just sitting on them. And I don't think you would run into that problem again. They seem to know, you know, what they can handle now. So.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, you know, I mean, there's lots of people who want to do public interest work, and it is, I mean, you know, ironically, because people are working for making less money, but it's like gets amazing people like these students and like you guys. You know, it is really competitive. So definitely people should apply broadly too, and you might end up, you know, coming across an area that you didn't think you would love that you do. I would say that one of the fellows who spoke at lunch, her fellowship was upended because it would have required her to move interstate, and she couldn't do that during the pandemic, or to be in a different location. So basically the requirement, it doesn't have to be somewhere like a lot of the fellows today worked at like large legal services organizations, but it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be somewhere that Aspera has ever worked before. The only criteria is a nonprofit, and again, not government service, like I said, but with one lawyer who can supervise you on staff. So it has to have one lawyer at least who's willing to supervise, but other than that, so this fellow, Sarah Francois, I'm sure she said people could reach out to her, but she just found an organization that she wanted to work with that had a lawyer. So it doesn't have to be somewhere that people have already worked as well, although of course there's plenty of places that people have worked and talked about today that are also wonderful. I guess there's a question from Anna. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to mention that a great way to find internships is the PILC Fair. I'm assuming it's going to be held remotely this year, but usually it's kind of like a big career fair type situation where you go and you can have pre-scheduled interviews and there's table talk. And I had a few pre-scheduled interviews, but I really wanted Mobilization for Justice. So I went to their table talk table and just chatted up with them for a while, and then emailed them after I got an interview, and that's how I got my internship. So definitely highly recommend the PILC Fair. I don't know how table talk would work remotely, but I'm sure it'll happen somehow. And it's a great way to just kind of like build rapport with people that work there and get to know the organization and, you know, make yourself known to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you raised that, Meredith, because even if, however, table talk or whatever takes form, but even if it's not even at the PILC Fair, like I know a lot of fellows who did not get their placement through like a scheduled interview, because sometimes the places do it, they, you know, prioritize second years, or they just have other reasons why they just sort of cut people out. And then they got it through another way. Like the person, you know, the person from the organization came to speak at BLS, which also happens remotely, but just reaching out, like, don't be shy. Definitely there, if anything, the only reason they wouldn't respond is if they're, you know, really busy, but mostly they're just going to be excited that there are people who are interested in an organization and excited. I found public interest attorneys to be really great about mentoring, you know, really generous because they're excited for other younger or newer people to come up. So don't worry, don't be shy about that either. Anastasia?
Yes, can you hear me? Okay, good. Sometimes it doesn't work, so just checking. So my question was, if we are like if 1Ls or even if 2Ls or 3Ls are just starting a pro bono project, like maybe it's something we just joined and haven't really gotten into it yet, or by the time that we're sending the application, like we've only done a few hours, is that still something to include in the application? Is there a way to make a note of it? How do you suggest going about that?
Yeah, great. No, definitely make a note of it. I mean, the most important thing is not like, we're not looking, like I said, for like one profile or for like even a certain number of hours. We're just looking for like a person who has demonstrated like, you know, real interest in social justice. Although again, like I said, it could be different areas of social justice and could be like, you know, volunteer things from college coupled with pro bono. It definitely doesn't have to be legal in nature. Like you heard from Gavi and some others, like a lot of people haven't done that coming in. So definitely please note anything. People also note like personal, like lived experiences or other things as well. All of that, you know, helps us to understand where your passion comes from, because that's what we want. We want people who are passionate about social justice or public interest from whatever source, and people who have like acted in some capacity, although we know there's lots of reasons why people might have different levels of, you know, time commitment. And so definitely don't rule it out, even if you haven't been able to do it a lot. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background.
Okay, thank you. No, it's okay. I was worried my dog was about to start barking, so I thought that was my dog, but thank you. That helps.
He might like sense your dog somehow, but and then I think Emily has a question.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering, I've heard it said that that well, I don't know if it's the vast majority, but a significant number of 1L summer internships are in government. And also we've heard Zachary and others say, that how competitive it is and how many applications need to go out. So say you throw your hat into several rings involving social justice, etc. And then if you land a government job as opposed to a non-government job, would that mean obviously you wouldn't get funding for it, but would that mean I have to say no to that because
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, we generally, part of the reason why we try to have decisions, either like at the end of the semester or like very early in January, is to avoid some of that so that you will know that you have the funding for SPARE. And I will say that there's never been, and I think Danielle can correct me, I mean, I've even been here a little longer than her, but there's never been a SPARE who's not been able to find a placement, right? I think the combination of having the funding and like how great the candidates are. So you might not get your very first choice. Zachary, it was like, panic because of COVID. So a lot of places canceled their programs. That's kind of, but definitely it's not like, you have the funding, you're gonna find a place. There have been times when people did apply for something else like in government and then deferred their SPARE fee and are still part of the program and did it the next summer. But we definitely do discourage that because it is a really competitive project, like I said, program, and we don't want to like put people off. But like that can happen if that happens like through something that you have to, like there's a deadline of December 1st for this government program or something. Although generally I don't think there is. I think it's generally later, more in January when you would know you already have the SPARE funding. But if that happened, we can definitely work with you. It's not like you absolutely are allowed to defer, but we generally have been flexible with people. But again, I would urge people, unless there's a deadline that has to be done before you know about SPARE, to really only apply if you really want to do non-government public service, because you will know before the government thinks. Again, if there's a situation where you don't know before the government position deadline, then that's we understand. But if you know you have the SPARE funding, then we really encourage people not to continue applications for other jobs.
And I would just want to add is that there are probably equal, if not more, jobs in the nonprofit sector versus government. I think it's public sector generally is where 1Ls work. So I wouldn't necessarily even say government at all. And actually during the pandemic, the nonprofit sector probably took on more interns because the government has a lot of problems right now with hiring freezes and the way they can use volunteers. So that's a little bit of misinformation, I think. But yes, everything Cynthia said, but I just wanted to put that out there in case to correct.
Thank you. Sorry, I just have to check on my dog for 1 second. Danielle, you handled the queue?
Yes.
I think my son let him outside.
Are there any other questions? Any questions? Any gems of wisdom about the application process or fellows would like to share?
Just for you, safe. He did not run out the front door, so just in case people were worried.
Good. I just want to add in the how do you select a job? I thought it was really important that you like who you're working with, because I kind of selected my job a great interview, as in I really liked the attorney who was interviewing me, and so when I got the offer, I was like, yeah, definitely I'll work with you. Because especially with things being remote, you don't have the office environment to kind of meet everybody else organically. So you're really going to work with your supervisors and rely on them a lot more closely. So make sure you like them.
I think that's such great advice in general. Public interest organizations, I've worked at ones before I came to teaching full time that had an amazing mission and some loves humanity, hates humans is sort of a cliche in the public interest community, but a very bad boss. And then, worked at others that maybe, oh gosh, he's going crazy again. Anyway, very important to get the culture of the place as much as you can and explore different kinds of places, right? Some of them talked about direct service or impact litigation or policy. That's a great thing about being in law school and about being at Brooklyn when things do open up, is because there's so many places in New York area. So you can also do semester, during the semester, most people do at least 2 or maybe even more placements. So to explore different kinds of work in different organizations. Yep, Marissa?
Hi, I was just wondering if, so I know that you said our letters of recommendation need to be emailed, but is there any way to get that to get the letters like forwarded from our law school application?
Yeah, great question. If you're going to use a letter from your law school application, just please email and tell Marva that when you email your application, because then we can get it from the director of admissions. Because I know a lot of stuff like with paper and everything is hard these days, but definitely be really clear and tell us that so that we can request it from them, because we're not in the same physical location as them either.
Thank you.
Faith?
Hi, yes. So I am a 1L, and I noticed in the application, or at least in the website, it says that consideration is based on strong academic background. If I am a 1L, are you referring to like undergrad grades? Okay. And if I've been out of school for quite some time? Oh, okay.
I was just making a note to myself that we should update the information because the program has changed a bit, partly due to like internal advocacy. So I just want to say the fellows are like amazing. There's an amazing community at Brooklyn, not just the Spare Fellows, but other public interest people who are also wanting to change things at the law school internally as well as in the world. So basically, we definitely do want academic standing, but only because we don't want people to be taking, time away from their work. Back to the first question about balancing work and study if they're in an academically precarious situation. Okay, my dog's going crazy, and my son. No, Patrick. That was my son, actually not my dog, but, and I just called him the dog's name, so I'm demonstrating bad parenting, but, anyway, there used to be, but there is no grade cutoff, and we have had students who are more recently weaker. So definitely, again, our only concern is how to support people, but we definitely do no longer have an academic cutoff. We do look at it very, much more important is the commitment to public interest and the passion about it, like we talked about earlier. So yes, it's really not really an issue as much anymore. So we should actually probably change the website. Much more important is the commitment to public interest. And again, we only want to know about people's academics to be able to support people, because we don't want people to be at peril of, academic suspension or whatever. And then we want to find ways to help them as a community. Yeah, my son basically pressed on the piano because he was mad that I called him the dog's name, which is kind of understandable. Okay, any other questions? This is like the Zoom world. Oh my gosh. I was going to ask, so if one of the fellows, I don't know if any of you participated in the summer reading group or were able to, or if any of you, have like what in terms of the lunches and the speakers, but if anyone wants to speak a little bit about that.
I can speak a little about the summer reading group. A couple of students and myself helped co-organize it, and it was like a really, really great way this summer to be able to engage in a lot of really topical critical theory issues. And while this reading group is kind of like originated historically under SPARE, regardless of whether you have a SPARE internship or not, I think if you're interested in like the topics, like you should keep an eye out. I'm sure like another cohort of students will be organizing it for this coming summer. But yeah, it was a nice way to learn things that you might not learn, that you definitely wouldn't learn in your like 1L doctrinal classes. And we try to pair it with like our internship experiences to some degree. So we would talk about things we were experiencing at our internships and how they might intersect with like different critical theory issues.
Yeah, just to Gavi's point, I just wanted to say that like, regardless of whether you apply, although we really hope you do, and become part of the SPARE Fellowship, there's like a wonderful broader public interest community at Brooklyn, including Blisby and just a million other organizations, overlapping, but also, many wonderful students and then alums committed to public interest. So definitely look into those organizations as well. Blisby also has grants for the summer. So many people do, a SPARE grant for one and Blisby for others. So any other questions? I guess I'll just say a word about the lunches and the symposium. They're really like student driven and something we've been really like really lucky to have is, so basically students will suggest, we have basically there's 6 lunches a semester, but 4 of them are based on like certain topics, or 3 or 4 of them. And those topics have been in recent years completely chosen by the students, like stuff they're interested in. So last year, I don't know if I'm remembering the right years, but there's been ones in the last few years on like the conditions of confinement in jails and prisons. And then also last year on the lawsuit by the state of New York and by Legal Aid against ICE for arresting people in courthouses. There's been one on mental health courts. I know I'm forgetting other things, but, and then the symposium, you know, again, came out of student interest, like it was their idea, and helping organize and students helping moderate. Actually, Meredith, who was here, co-moderated the symposium, and students are moderating the lunches. And it also gives an additional chance to hear about issues that they're interested in, but also to, you know, get to meet people in the area of interest. So going back to sort of Meredith's point about reaching out, like if you're really interested in a topic, you know, like invite those, or I mean, in an organization, invite those speakers to lunch. Any other questions? Well, I really wanted to thank, I know people have like Zoom fatigue, and especially at the end of the day, so really thank you all for being here, and the fellows for coming. I know you're all really busy, but please feel free to reach out with any questions to Danielle or Marva or myself, or I think the fellows, hopefully I can speak for them, and good luck with everything.